The way that we played against LA Galaxy over there, it was special. You know, it's one of the best teams in the country. We deserve to win. But I think it was more seeing the process, not the moment. It was more seeing the process, how we managed to turn a team around during the transfer window, to put a lot of work in that transfer window. So I think that was my high.
Welcome to a new edition of the City Voice podcast. I'm joined by a very special guest for an end of season special. It's Lutz Pfannenstiel, Sporting Director of St. Louis City SC. How you doing, Lutz? You've been looking forward to this. I know. You've been looking forward to this.
Definitely, yeah, I'm good. Looking forward to, the off season. Looking forward to still do some things, important things for the future of the club, and of course, looking forward to talk to you today, Pete.
You don't really have a break, do you? You get what are the busiest phases of the season for you?
I arrived in July 2020, and I haven't had really a day off since then, or maybe a day, but I haven't really took a holiday yet. Still in the process, there is still a lot to do, so I just can't get my head around yet to go away for a few days and really just chill. Right now is a really busy time. Players are leaving. There is exit interviews. There is exit medicals. There is a lot of things you need to do on the stuff. Then of course, first team players' contracts expiring. You're having options to exercise or not. We have a second team which does really well, where there is also options and contracts. And then you have an academy team, which is right now, all the teams are playing every weekend, up to 8 games on a weekend. So a lot to do, even trials in the community. I want to watch and be involved in that as well. So it's just a never-ending story.
What is this isn't in the podcast run a show, but how does an exit interview work for a player? When you're in business, an exit interview is when you're leaving the business in totality.
No, I think that's a good thing about MLS. An exit medical and an exit interview is that players who are going home or away for a holiday, that they're getting fully checked through by our doctors, which is very important that we know where they stand, not just on a fitness or blood level, but also in general physically. Are they healthy? Is there things we need to monitor? Which also gives our physical coaches a clear idea what to work on in the off season. We have a long break of 8 weeks till they come back, or nearly 9 weeks, which is too long in professional analytics, I would say, to actually have that long of a break. But we didn't have that break by choice. We had it because we didn't make the playoffs. So my interview then is to talk with individual players about their feeling of the year, their performances, what the future holds, what do they want to improve about themselves. Also, they can be critical towards me. They can be critical towards the club or the staff. That's when they should freely speak and say what they think. But we have a good group of guys. It's not there's no fighting. I think that's more a very nice way of discussing what happened in the last year and where we want them to be next year.
So you create an environment where they're learning and then you're learning in return, and that's what it builds trust. Yeah,
I think every opinion counts. It doesn't matter if it's Edu Löwen or if it's Caden Glover, like a very experienced player who played at top level, or Caden, which is a homegrown player who trains with the first team, but also plays with the second team and in the academy. So they have different levels of experience, but that's also different levels of impressions. And for me, it's important that I get from everybody in the team, also the staff, that little impressions to adjust things for the future.
So let's talk about the season, very top level. How would you assess what the last 9 months were like?
Extremely weird / strange. I'm pretty sure you want to know why.
Yes.
So I think looking at circumstances this year, it's I always believe that a whole season turns out to be controllable. That as a club, you can be in control. Like last year, we were in control. This year, we somehow had no chance to control the outcome of the season because the amount of injuries we had was crazy. But not just the amount of injuries, also the length of our top players who were gone for 6, 7, 8 weeks made a huge impact. We played games with kids, to be fair. If I look at this game when we played away in Colorado and I look at the starting lineup, now I mean, it just, my hair stands up. It's crazy how difficult the times were then. I think we had a unique situation with Edu Löwen, where a sickness, an illness in the family really makes it not easy for Edu himself, but also for the whole technical stuff and the players. How do I act and how do you react in a situation like that? We had a coaching change. Which is never easy, and that was it's always something which can have a positive or a negative impact into that. And going back to the injuries or to the lineups, for me, consistency, stability is how you actually describe a successful season. So in the top leagues in the world, you're talking about 3.2 center backs who playing for a top team or for a team. We played 11 center backs this season. We had 20 different back fours lineups in 34 games. So this is the ultimate opposite of stability and consistency when it comes to that. So there was no communication. There was no understanding, nothing really going synchronized. But I can't blame the players and I can't blame the coaches, because it's impossible to create that kind of motion and kind of chemistry between the players, where it is the most important to what decides to win or to lose games. And you can have the best goalkeeper in the league or an international top level goalkeeper like Roman in goal. That still does not compensate for the fact that you play 20 different lineups, back fours, and that you have 11 center backs who fill 2 positions. It's absolutely unheard. It's crazy. It's awkward. It's weird. Go back to where I started.
Does and you mentioned the different combinations of lineups. Like I'm guessing that also feeds into confidence issues, because it's difficult to get results when you're playing different lineups, and if you're not getting results, people feel they're not performing well. Confidence dips, and then it's difficult to claw out that hole.
That's a spin-off. The confidence is a spin-off. Mistakes are spin-offs. It's imagine 2 center backs where the distances between the players, the talking, the instructions also given by the goalkeeper, also the balance between our central defensive midfielders like Edu and Durkin, in a real strong communication, not just verbally, but also with the eyes, gestures. If that is missing, you cannot create that strong defensive connection you want to have. That is when you concede goals. And that happens when you make individual mistakes. So for the fan, sometimes it looks like, well, that player X, he's so bad because he makes constantly the same mistake. Sometimes it's not that easy, Pete. It has to do with a lot. If you can't train together, if you can't find that kind of connection and really important, I think, let's call it connection or call it relationship between these players in these very important central positions, it just becomes very, very difficult. So I sound now a huge book of excuses, but I'm not talking about an excuse. I talk about pure facts. That's the facts what we had to deal with. And then in the end of the day, I have to say, other teams also had injuries and similar situations, and some of them made it to the playoffs. So, it was not our year, but I think it was a big learning curve for us last year. You could change dirt into chocolate. We just touched it and it turned into chocolate. This year, well, we changed chocolate into dirt sometimes. We had great opportunities. We were 25 times, we dropped 25 points of being up, having a lead. We couldn't compensate that, but it all goes back to the same. I don't want to sound like a broken record. It all goes back to the same thing. We could not find the consistency in a lineup, and that's the bread and butter to be successful in a team sport like football.
We've spoken on this podcast about the 5-year plan that you've got. Does a weird season like the one we've just had, does that break the 5-year plan, or are you confident that the ups, it was never going to be linear, getting to where you wanted to get to, and you can break the cycle?
Not at all. I think we are right on track looking ahead to 2025. What happened last year was a Cinderella story. It was a fairy tale. We were, to be honest, did you overperform? Yeah, I would say so. But it just was too good, to be fair. To win the West, win the regular season after 34 games haven't been done before. We were the first team. So I was very clear, and I think actually you and me spoke about, probably in a podcast about that in the end of last season, early this season. It will not go that linear. It not always can go up and up and up. If we would go back up, I mean, where or higher up, where would you end up? I knew it would be a difficult year. They always say in Europe, if a team gets promoted, the first year is easy because you're playing on a real euphoric kind of attitude, and things are sometimes going by itself and everything is new. And then suddenly you're falling into that normality. And I wouldn't say that we fell in normality, but I think we had obviously a dip. And that dip had to do with various things. I think that the other teams, they knew how we play football. There was a bit of a plan B was missing. So we got a bit too predictable. And all of that, plus the injuries and plus all the other circumstances, has put us in a situation where we have to learn from. So even though I'm German, I'm very positive when it comes to thinking. You know, Germans are normally not that positive. They're pessimistic by birth. I'm a bit different here. I'm actually very positive that bad season or not hitting our target season makes us stronger and very clear of our approach next season.
You've played all over the world. You've worked in technical positions at lots of clubs. You've been surprised by this season. What were the big learnings for you in your role?
Well, the big learnings was that we had a decent start where we couldn't finish games. So we had too many draws. I remember that very well when we drew left, right, and center. And then suddenly we fell into I would call it into a hole. 9 games without a win, a few draws, but lots of unnecessary defeats, and we just didn't play the good football anymore. I think we made the coaching change in the right moment. I'm still convinced about that. Did we turn the season around? Well, we hardly, I would say. There was still a lot of games had to be played before the transfer window opened. I think once we did transform the team and once we changed the squad, and I didn't change the squad because I felt like doing it. We changed the squad simply because we were forced to do it through injuries. And sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. Sometimes, you're forced to do something which you maybe would have more done now in the winter transfer window. We already did it then. So for me, looking ahead now, we had 5 guys leaving, 6 new players coming. 5 of the new players started nearly every game. So 5 players, that's nearly 50% of the team. Take Roman out, it's 50% of the outfield players. It's a big fluctuation, it's a big change. We also got 3 guys up from the second team, so that's 9 new guys in the squad. I mean, that's massive. The way we played, the way we performed, also some of the results showed me that we will be next year a completely different team like we were this year in the start of the season. There is still little things has to be changed. There still has to be improvements done, but we will not see even closely as many moves as we did this summer in the coming winter. There will be maybe 2-3 adjustments done. And I think then we will be strong enough to compete again next year at a much higher level as we did today.
The adjustments that you made to the playing squad seem to indicate a bit of a shift, maybe not in philosophy, but in the way that you play within the identity that you have. Like you've signed attacking players, great control, great finishing, like very high level of technical ability across all of them, and it changed what we were looking at as fans watching the game. What was the thinking behind that? What made you decide to move towards that kind of model?
You're completely wrong there. We didn't change anything in the model. Our stats hardly changed. We still have the same amount of counter-pressing movements. We still have the same pressing movements. The only thing we adjusted to have a different approach when we have the ball. So, we added better players, better quality players. And it gives us now the opportunity, or gives us a chance not to press for 90 minutes. Because if we have the ball, we want to have the ball and we want to play with the ball. So yes, our Possession.
Is that what you were specifically looking to add, that quality of player, so that you could have more possession in the final third?
Well, a little bit more possession, but definitely more quality chances. And you know, if you think back, there was a part where it looked like when we played for 90 minutes, and it looked like we just can't score, or we don't even create that 100% high quality scoring chances. Now you have a feeling, and I don't think it's just me, I think it's you and everybody else as well. When we do attack, there is always somebody who pops up and can score out of nowhere. And we create a lot of chances. Even against a team like Club America. I mean, the amount of chances we had in this game against one of the best teams in the continent, you know, that proved to me that we are back on track. And I'm not telling you now that everything within 23 was bad. Not at all. It was great. Actually, it was good. It was exactly that what we wanted. But then you need to develop as a team. You need to develop as a club. And you also need to develop as a staff where the game model doesn't stand still. The game model somehow develops in itself. And for us, we still want to have our high intensity. We still want to press as high as possible. We still want to go into the counter press and win the ball back. But I ask you a very simple question. I mean, you have a good football brain. If I have the ball and I'm comfortable on the ball, can the other team score? Do I have to press if I have the ball? No. And that's a very simple answer. That doesn't make us into a possession team at all. We don't want to be considered to be a possession team. We don't have the players for that. We still within our philosophy, but we softened the approach a little bit. We added some quality players, and we are now much more comfortable in our way by creating chances and also sometimes dominating a game, not just physically, but also with the ball on our feet.
Does having players that can do that, does that help from a load perspective in the game? Like if you can hold on to the ball for a little bit longer, it's less chasing, it leaves more in the tank, allows you to perhaps have fresher players for longer in the season. Does that all factor into it as well?
100%. You know, that's not just, there's nothing to do with us as St. Louis City, but if you're looking at some of these teams which are really only based on pressing, counter-pressing, they're usually towards a certain moment in the game, 75th minute, you feel the intensity going down if they keep on doing it. And also in partly towards the end of the season, some of these teams, they slowly start to collapse. So, you know, the players are human beings, they're not robots. So I think you need to find a bit of a balance to that. We do have a better balance now, but we still wanna stand for our basic philosophy, what we grew as a club and what we grew as a team. Don't expect that we're turning into Pep's Man City now and becoming a tiki-taka team. We won't. We don't have the players for that. You know, we have a lot of Scandinavian players, we have a lot of German players, and they have a clear way of playing. And this is right now very much mirrors and reflects the identity what we have.
So let's talk about some of the players you brought in. We had Edu on the podcast just before you. He mentioned that when you were signing players or thinking about it, you were talking to some of the leadership crew. You've mentioned before that it's not just talent that you're looking for, it's character. How happy are you with the players that you've signed from a character perspective?
Yeah, you know, I mean, in the end of the day, I have to decide who I sign. So it's no point to consult everybody and figure out what you want. But once I have my mind up and it comes down to a short list and there is players who play together or players who know each other, then it's always good to get a little bit of more insight about the player's character. I always said, you know, there is lots of good center forwards out there. There is a lot of good center backs out there, but it needs to fit from a personality. I think this is this clear understanding what I had with Caroline from day one. We want to bring in guys with a good character. We don't want to have players who are basically having scandals week in, week out. So having values, knowing how to behave on and off the field is very important for the ownership. It's also very important for me. And it plays a big role of who do we sign and who do we not sign. And you mentioned Edu. I mean, Edu played together in the youth national team, but also in the club. For example, him and Cedric Teuchert, they played in Nuremberg together. They played in the national team together. Marcel Hartl played together with Edu in the national team. Yannis Horn played together with Edu in the national team. So we're having like 4 players now who played in the same German under-21 team who went really, really well and far in European championships. You do feel that kind of chemistry, on the field. And if you sometimes not standing too far away from me at games, if we get the ball to Yannis Horn on his left foot on the left side, and then there's this little triangle game between Edu, him, and Cello, Marcel Hartl, then the other teams, they're starting to sweat. And that's definitely good that these players have already a pre-relationship prior to coming to St. Louis.
I do stand close to you during the game, and the cheer that you let out when Sedi scored his first goal was quite loud. You've had to cheer quite a lot. How good does it feel when you pluck a player out of Europe and then they just hit the ground running like that?
I don't really want to talk too much about my feelings or myself here, but of course, if you decide to make a bigger switch and you bring in 6 new players, and you look at the impact, and I know you want to walk through the players, and I also want to do that with you now. You're looking, and let me start with let's start with Cedric Teuchert. His stats are scary, and I told him today, I said, look, you probably reached maybe 80% of 100% fitness. You probably reached 80% of your potential. If you're at 100%, you're in a bigger force than you are right now. But the goals he scores, how calm he is in the finish, how experienced he is, also sometimes his vision to find the better position player, it had a big impact with us. So, also a great character, like father of young children, like just a very, very positive impact for us coming here. I heard that a lot. I tried to sign him in January and I couldn't find a deal with Hannover, and I tried my hardest, and I tried so hard that I ended up in an emergency room in Florida because I didn't sleep for 4 days. Unfortunately, it didn't work, but it did work in the summer. And seeing that, the way Cedric came into this group, the way he integrated himself was amazing. And it just was one of these players where I always had a good feeling about. Marcel Hartl on the other side, he's like, I would call it the creative maestro.
Big signing as well, right? That was the top Bundesliga 2 player.
He was not just a top Bundesliga 2 player. He was the most successful Bundesliga 2 players in the last 30 years in the last season. Whatever he touched worked out. He had exactly 20 offers before we came in the pictures. And they were from France, from a Champions League team. They were from different Bundesliga 1 teams. Obviously, St. Pauli tried to keep in those English clubs, Spanish clubs. There was also another MLS team there which tried to sign him. And I have to admit, I was very, very surprised when I realized that Marcel seriously considers in his age and after that season to go into the MLS. When that chance somehow opened up for us, I went to the ownership and to Diego and says, we need to jump on this player. That's at the moment the hot property in German football, but even all over Europe. Everybody chases this kid. And we managed it. We brought him in, we flew him in. He looked at St. Louis and I took him to my house and we went out for dinner and we drove around, and it was a nice excursion time here. And he loved it, and then making that deal happen. And then again, bringing somebody in that time of the year, you never ever guarantee that it will just go through the roof. But same as Cedric Teuchert, I think the impact Marcel had was tremendous. Some goals, some great assists, great at set pieces. He's already a fan favorite. It's fun to watch him play. It's fun to actually see him train. What people didn't realize, he played 6 weeks with a broken toe. Hardly was able to train. Like, I think I saw him more with his foot in a kind of a pot with ice water than actually on the field during the week, and he still played through the pains and did fantastic. Pete, same situation. He wasn't close to 100%. in my
There's
opinion,
more to come with both.
100%. I mean, not just more to come, a lot more to come. I mean, that I can tell you. I know these boys since they're 16, 17 years old, and there is still, when I say now, I'm really moaning at the highest level here. I'm complaining at the highest level because it was 2 outstanding performers, but there is still a lot left for them to show us even more. The third one, which people maybe don't recognize because it's a different position, but for me was the super impact, and I would put it just up there at the same level like Cedric and Marcel, was Yannis Horn as a left back. That's a position where you are a little bit the unsung hero because you're not really involved that much in the spectacular things. You work hard on that side. You need to find the right balance between attacking and defending. It just was really a pleasure to see him. Another one of this glorious German under 21 national team. He just made us so much better. He made us better from a structure. He made us better from a defensive standpoint. He made us better going forward. Was a big signing, was a big loan for us from Nuremberg. And I really hope that he just comes back next year and, we have 6 months left on his loan and just does exactly what he did this season, because he was for me one of these guys which really just did amazingly well.
Lutz, so we've done 3 players now. We've got 3 more to go. Talk to me about Simon Becher.
Yeah, what a story, I chased the kid since I came to St. Louis. When he was playing for SLU, we tried to get him into CITY2 in 2022, but we couldn't get it done with the league because we couldn't draft any players. So he ended up in Vancouver. I tried to actually trade him from Vancouver to us. It didn't work, and then suddenly he ends up in Denmark. So that was for me, goodbye, Simon Becher. We will not get you. And then it was really a coincidence that the same sporting director I signed Isak Jensen from a different club. He moved to that club, to Horsens, where Simon was. We had a chat, and then the team got relegated. There was questions and had an American ownership, I think, as well. So we made an offer for a loan deal. They accepted it, and his impact. Also as a pressing player, playing our style, scoring
Hack
goals.
loves his pressing.
Everybody loves his pressing. I think everybody loves Simon. It's a bit like Simon Says, good. So he just did really well. It's a good character also in the changing room. He's very, very, very well integrated. So that's, I would say, a special story. Somehow, even though I think he's born in Kansas, he somehow considers himself as a St. Louisan, which is great. And we are very happy and excited to have him here. Hopefully not just till the summer. But the ball is in our court. So if we do pull the option, exercise the option, he will be a City player. And let's just put it this way. Looks pretty good, I would say. Looking
good. What does he bring to the forward line that perhaps wasn't there before, or...
Flexibility, deep runs. We don't have the guys who get run that much behind, but he can do that all day long. He still needs to work on sensing. He's young, holding the ball a bit better up. He's not the typical holding center forward like Klaus can be, but him and Klaus playing together is an option. Klaus playing behind him could be an option. Maybe only one of them two playing could be another option, and the other one comes from the bench. Whatever it is, that's the coach's job. And not necessarily mine, but he gives us a lot of flexibility up there, and he knows how to score. And I think also for the next season, I think he's one of the guys. I think lots of MLS teams are having their antennas up now and trying to find if they can get Becher from the Danish team. Nah, they won't.
No.
I think he will be with us.
Fans love him. The fans love him. You've spoken about Yannis. We've already spoken about, so we've done Yannis, Hartel, Teuscher, Becher.
Let's go for Henry.
Let's go for Henry. Yeah. Tell me about Henry. 26 years old.
Similar situation with Henry. When I came to the States in 2020, they played in the bubble. in Orlando, and I watched as much as I could. That was if you remember, in our old office, I had like a board of players which I want to sign. Henry Kessler was my number one defender in 2020.
What do you like about him?
I like his calm ways. He is young, but he's 26. I mean, not a kid anymore, but young. But he is very mature. He's very experienced. He's very good with the ball on his feet. So his build-up is exceptional. He's a good one-on-one defender. I mean, he's a tall kid. You know, he's I would say he's decent in the air. But he plays the football I like. I think he also harmonies very well with Roman Bürki to marshal the back. And I think, for me, Henry Kessler was a no-brainer. You know, there is no secret that we made an offer to Tim Parker. And the offer was not efficient for Tim. So coming to an end of a contract, there was a move. In my opinion, it had to be done, and we wouldn't have just moved for any player. Getting Henry Kessler in was then for me a very, very clear-cut decision, and he still has a lot to grow. There is still a lot of room to improve as a player in the future, because as a centre back, the experience factor, playing as many games as possible, always comes in there. But definitely, for me, a very good signing also for the future.
And that goal that he scored against his old team, beautiful header. Final one, JGR. What's JGR all about?
JGR is talented. JGR is young. You know, that's an investment in the future. But JGR comes from the Australian League, which is a bit of a lower level than the MLS, but still good level. With JGR, he's flexible when it comes to positions. Is he now a centre back or is he a six? We're still trying to figure out what is really his best position. For him to have that constant fight in training to earn a spot is obviously something which is challenging him. He played in Sydney nearly every game. Now suddenly he's coming more from the bench, but he played a big number of games, even if it's not like 90 minutes, but sometimes it's 60 minutes, sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes it's 10. He still has a player which has a lot of promise, but he also needs of course a game time. I think a very interesting project for the future.
Do you feel like it's a different dressing room now? Does it have a different personality?
Yeah, I mean, there's 6 new guys plus 3 new guys who came from City2. With Jay Reid, who did exceptionally well, Michael Wenzel, which proved himself, and Johnny Klein came up as well. And it is 9 new faces suddenly in there, 9 different characters. So yeah, the changing room is different. We also had a lot of players moving on, where that always changes the momentum and the atmosphere in a changing room. Ours definitely changed in a very positive way.
So let's talk about the coaching position. Hat came in as an interim coach. 4 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses that you mentioned the other day. Did he do the job that you wanted him to?
100%. It was not an easy job to come in. Coming into a team which is a little bit divided also because of the injuries, and having not the best run of results is always tough. But John has experience. John has a very good way of man management. So he very quickly kind of united the people again, and managed to integrate the younger players who came up from City2, but especially also the new guys who came in. And I think looking at the Leagues Cup, where I thought we played probably one of the club's best games ever against Club America. They beat us in the end of the day, but what a game that was. That was a feeling I got. We are in a good, strong position now. And who did we lose to? Let's be fair, we lost against LAFC away. Not our best game. You can lose there once in a while. And we lost twice against Minnesota, which somehow was the nail in our coffin when it comes to the playoff hopes. But that's the team at the moment in form. They hardly concede a goal. They had a great transfer window. They signed with Yeboah, an absolute bullet up there. So we lost against 3 times against 3, in this case, 2 very good teams. But we beat teams like Sporting. We beat Houston, who made the playoffs pretty easy. We beat LA Galaxy, playing some really good football. So we played 2 games away. I give you the best example was Portland away. You're 4-2 up with 15 minutes to go. Don't ask me how we didn't win it. We played 2-2 away in New England. Don't ask me how we didn't win it. So that is adding here a point and there a point. We would have had a really great record. Now I think it's a very decent record we had after John took over. But it's not always just be short-sighted and look at what happened in the last few weeks. We also need to look ahead in time and then come to the right conclusion.
I have tried to find out who you're going to make a decision on. You have not shared. So why don't you? This is recorded, so I don't know whether you'll have made a decision by next week. Maybe not. But I'd love to hear what you're looking for in a new coach, and if it's different to what you were looking for before. Has it changed at all?
I mean, talk about coaches. I think we need to look. We play a very intense playing style. So having teams who play a lot of pressing and counter-pressing, the duration or the expiry date of a coach is sometimes a little bit shorter than playing a pure possession team when there is a lot of ball possession and lots of pattern involved. So I think what we're looking for is a coach who immediately can have an impact, because I'm telling you, Pete, after this season, I don't have time for experiments. Lots of coaches who came from overseas came into the MLS, and I found it very difficult to play on a Wednesday in Orlando at plus 33 Celsius, and 3 days later in Salt Lake at 5 inches of snow and altitude. So MLS is comparable to the European Champions League when it comes to distances, weather conditions, climates. It's difficult. So sometimes for a European coach or for a South American coach to come over here, immediately find their footing. It happened a lot that they didn't. So this is something where I want to make sure we do have a successful season, 2025. There is in my space, in my head, there's not even one little space, a little inch of that we can have another season like that. And then again, regardless of injuries or whatever, we need to perform. We need to get our result, and that is clearly to make the playoffs. Whatever it is, anything else would be a huge disappointment. And who is the right coach to lead us there? And who is the right coach in that period of, let's say, the next 2 years? That is the way to find out how we should go, how we should move forward. We have good candidates, and we will make a decision as soon as we can, maybe before you publish the podcast.
Can maybe that kill after. Me?
Let's see.
Do people apply for the job? Is it like an application process, or do you scout? Like, how do you build the list? Do you always have an ongoing list? Like,
there's always an ongoing list, but you need to also be fair. Like at this level, coaches, it's not like that you apply like you want to work as a.
Pick the job carefully. It's not like a normal application process. Like you're applying for my job.
As a cameraman,
is what you meant to say
for your podcast.
Yeah. So you can't apply to the job through the St. Louis City website. Oh, you can. Okay.
I mean, you can theoretically apply also for my job if you want to.
Yeah.
You won't get my job, but you could apply for it. So that's something which there's people reaching out, there's agents reaching out. I mean, we had hundreds of coaches on a list, but we also used a lot of data. We wanted to have coaches which also are very synchronized to our playing style. And then we came to a list of coaches where very quickly we realized, well, let me contact that particular coach. And there was absolutely no interest to go to the MLS. Zero. Then you go to another big name coach, and he has some interest in the MLS, but his salary package is crazy. So there is only a certain number out there where everything really fits the bill. It's not that I snip with my fingers and I get a Bundesliga coach or a Premier League head coach. It's not that easy. We are not there yet, or the MLS is not there yet, that you can, in a head coaching position, just compete with the top leagues in the world. I think we're getting there in the future, and there is a lot of potential in the league, and we will be one of the best leagues in the world, but there is still sometimes a bit of a hesitation, and that is where we need to be smart about what we choose and what we pick.
So you have it sounds like you've got the choice. You're looking at people with MLS experience is like kind of one bucket, which is potentially important to you, or people with experience of playing in multiple different climates. Right?
No.
When you run the data,
then I would sign a snowman if you talk about like that. So no, that is not the case.
When you run the data, is it you run data like you look for managers that have statistics of teams that are like undervalued teams, or do you look for like high turnovers, high press? Like what sort of statistical models do you use?
We look for high press, we look for high intensity, but we also look for a good ratio of winning games. That's all. Somebody who was successful working in other markets. It's a very detailed process, I think, which every team in the world needs to do, because or you have your coach already in your mind before, which also doesn't really exist that much anymore. So we have clear data points, but then there is an interview process, and then an interview process you also need to get the human feeling for somebody. Data alone, same as players, gives you one side. But then there is a coach I would call it somebody who needs to catch a human's mind. Somebody who needs to motivate you, somebody who needs to who give you the extra edge, somebody who runs for you through a brick wall, so to say. That's very important also as a head coach. So it's not just the data points which give you the best head coach.
You need to feel a bit of magic. You need to be inspired by whoever you're talking to.
100%.
You speak a lot about culture, and I did want to ask. Like, you have cultural principles that you set up as a leader, but in the dressing room, you're not there all the time. Do you rely on a manager to take your cultural principles and put them in a dressing room, or do you bring in a manager who has cultural principles that you like and they put them in the dressing room? Like, how does that side of it work?
That's a very easy answer. So when we created this club, I sat down with the ownership, and we created a culture, and we created a clear our city philosophy, and this is non-negotiable. Meaning, in very simple words, the coach who comes in needs to work within our values and our principles. There will be not a coach come in who is bigger than the club and bigger than what we built in the last 4 years. He needs to come in and work within our rules, regulations, within our kind of idea, within our philosophy and values. That is very, very important. So the coaches which are in the end of the on a short list are guys which do fit exactly in that what I just described.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about injuries. You mentioned at the top of the show that injuries were a problem this season. We've chatted before, and we've had Jared on to talk about it. There are elements of injuries that you can control. If you fatigue players, then things can ping. Tell me what was so unique about the profile of injuries that we had this season?
That you couldn't find a pattern. Normally you do find patterns, lots of hamstring injuries, lots of similar kind of muscle injuries when you have too much load on a player. We didn't have that. We had in the start a few muscle injuries. When we looked into that, we pretty quickly sorted it out. But let's just go to Dallas. Celio Pompeu challenges a centre-back for a ball. And actually, he fouls the centre-back and snaps his ankle in that moment. Thomas Ostrak, in a very harmless training situation, gets kicked by AC Jackson, and he needs a surgery on his ankle. Rasmus Alm comes back from injury, plays an amazing game away in Miami, and the Miami player falls on his knee and his MCL is gone. So what else do you want me to say? Joachim Nielsen goes up for a header and breaks his rib. So we had everything under the sun you can imagine. There was no pattern. Now, I'm a believer. I don't believe in good luck and bad luck, usually. This year, changed my mind. In the age of 51, I changed my mind about that because it just can't, it cannot be, it's not normal. Yeah, but that's also things which you have to go through. You cannot just wipe it away. So we need to analyze that. We look into that, but we did a lot of that. And in the end of the day, it was plenty of contact injuries and how you want to control a contact injury.
Do you think if there is an advantage to be had from not making the playoffs, do you think the recovery time will allow players to refresh mentally and physically and come back stronger?
I don't think there is any advantage of not making the playoffs. 9 weeks of a break is pretty tragic. I said it to our players the last time we had a break of 9 weeks was when you were 12 years old. And it was snowing outside and you couldn't play outside because your mom didn't let you. So it's just too long. But then again, we have with Gerald Phillips, a smart guy when it comes to physical training and conditional training. So there is plans, what to do that by themselves. So it's also the players' clear responsibilities to make sure things are all right. And look after yourself, be professional. That's all what we can do.
All right, let's talk about CITY2. They've had another excellent season as it stands. Made it through the first playoff game. You've always paid a lot of attention to CITY2. You've always been a big believer in MLS Next Pro. They're packing the house to the extent where they're breaking records every week. The city is intrigued by what's going on and they're loving it. How much have you enjoyed the CITY2 experience this year?
I enjoyed it every single time. 22, we won the Western Conference, lost in the big MLS Next Pro final against Columbus. Last year we made the playoffs. But yeah, we have a lot of promising youngsters. I mean, Caden Glover, Makai Joyner, Tyson Pierce, that's all homegrown players who are doing really well. Some of the guys who are moving up and down, like Kajima, like Olivares in goal. It's fun to watch the kids. The staff with Bobby Murphy did a great job developing players, winning games. Sometimes people say, well, it's not always about winning and losing when it comes to development. It's true. You need to give youngsters opportunities. Winning is the cherry on the top. It makes it even sweeter. And really great job this year. We are now again in the playoffs. I think we can go all the way. Let's hope we do that. But then again, it's always the goal to make the playoffs, to give that big match mentality to the players, to give them that experience. And I think it's a really big step for us in developing youngsters.
Does the attendance at those CITY2 games make it easier to recruit?
Yeah, I would say so. It just shows what a fine soccer city St. Louis is, because having double digits in a MLS Next Pro game, but in other cities 200 people show up, with the red nose and the trumpet in their hand, and then you're coming here and we're having nearly a full crowd. That's amazing. I mean, it just gives the kids and the players and the coaches so much encouragement that they are important. Sometimes you go to a game and the only people who are there are the parents of the other players. Literally the parents, maybe the uncle and the little sister. And when we play, big turnout, very proud and very, very happy that the fans appreciate that.
A lot of first team players show up to watch the players as well. Is that mandatory, or is that?
It's not mandatory, but it's free sandwiches. So no, I'm just joking. It shows that we have a special bond and good sandwiches. So for me, that guys like Edu or Marcel or Roman Bürki coming regularly to these games on a free afternoon on a Sunday shows that there is a big bridge between development and professionals. There is a clear support structure that we are one team, we are one club. I think, again, it's pretty unique that we have that. And I mean, we have the ownership coming sometimes. If you ask probably other owners in the MLS, they don't even know that they have an MLS Next Pro team. Well, maybe no, but not really watching
Not going down, yeah. The academy has had a good year as well. Like, talk to me about what's exciting you in the academy sides.
Yeah, I think we have a good balance. It's good youngsters. Now we're not competing in the UPSL anymore, but we have this U18 league now, which I think is a pretty good standard. So the way we train, the way we perform, the way we also want the kids to play within our playing philosophy is very promising. Every year we're bringing lots of kids from our oldest age group into the MLS Next Pro. That is this strong pathway program, which I always talk about, very important. And Dale and his boys and girls, in this case with Megan, doing a fantastic job. Players getting better, players excited. We have big crowds, actually, even in our academy games sometimes. And it's what St. Louis stands for. It's just having diamonds, having young, talented players all over the show. And I think that's our social responsibility, to give these kids opportunities and maybe even sooner or later playing not just for the Next Pro team, but playing actually in the MLS.
You come from clubs that not only produce great pipelines for players, but also create coaches. You've got a lot of young, dynamic coaches in the background. Are you pleased with how that's going?
Yeah, 100%. It's coach to coaches is for me very important. It doesn't help a coach to let the coaches in the academy football do what they want to do or what they feel like. So there should be a clear guideline how we want to play football. That's what we did from day one. So our coaching education programs with Bernard Peters, they're always very well received. There's a clear handwriting, what we want to do, how we want to do it. And that, I think, makes it also much easier from players going up in age groups, going from a U15 into a U16, or going from a 16 into a U18. If everything is very clearly defined how we want them to play, that restructuring or that jump makes it much easier. And I think that is for a big advantage, that we're having a clear idea what we want to do.
And does it bring you a lot of pride when players getting called up to US men's national teams and other international organizations?
Yeah, seeing now, Mackay getting called up, coming in, scoring a goal. Lorenzo Cornelius having his debut, scoring straight away in a European tournament. That's great. It just shows that we wanna put the extra mile in there. We wanna put a lot of work in there, and I think it's a very special organization where I know that the ownership and everybody else really supports our idea of having a great academy. And I always say, don't get blindsided and only think it's just about the first team. Yeah, that's the beautiful, shiny, I would call it, unique thing everybody looks at. It's the high profile, but there is much more work done in this club than the high profile stuff. We do a lot in players development. We do a lot in coaches development. We do want to be strong in the development when it comes to MLS Next Pro. So it's not just about that shiny little thing which is called MLS. It's about the whole picture and the whole project.
It takes a long time for an academy to really get going. Do you feel that what you've built over there is moving faster than expected? Like, how do you feel about the results so far?
No, we're moving, I think, exactly the plan we had. We always make it usually to the nationals as well. We always manage to bring at least one team in the semifinals of the nationals so far every single year. Of course, we want to win also a national title sooner or later, but we are a young franchise. We are a new team. But so far, we're always up there. We're always in there in the mix to actually win something. And, it's as I said, let's not be only result driven and also be development, not just as a player, but also personality driven. But we definitely have something big growing here when it comes to academy football.
And I know one of your big passions was bringing soccer to everybody in St. Louis. Have you got any thoughts on City Futures and the impact it's having in lots of different places with the mini pitches, the AmFam mini pitches going up?
Yeah, that's, we want to be an exceptional neighbor. We want to use that beautiful game to bring people together. Now, we don't have the younger age groups, the U7s, U8s, U12s, but this is where we are out there. We are scouting, we are giving opportunities. We are, going into the community to give people an introduction to the game. There's so much unpolished talents out there. Let's be fair. The game of soccer in the United States is not affordable for everyone. There is a pay-to-play system in place where parents have to pay quite a lot of money to give their kids organized football. And I think this is our social responsibility to come in and give everybody the opportunity to play the game. And if these kids are good enough, then, I want more and more City Future kids come into the academy system, go to the trials, and somehow believe that they can make it. That's what is one of my biggest dreams for the future, for the city and for the club.
Let's finish on some highs. What have been some of your standout moments from the season? I know it's a difficult season. I know the missing out the playoffs is tough for you, but there's got to be some positivity in there.
Yeah, I think when we started to train and play after the transfer window, you saw how the level changed. I think the game we played against LA Galaxy when we won 2-1, the way when we played against LA Galaxy over there, it was special. It's one of the best teams in the country. We deserve to win. But I think it was more seeing the process, not the moment. It was more seeing the process, how we managed to turn a team around during the transfer window, to put a lot of work in that transfer window. So I think that was my high. The low was when we lost against Minnesota, when you knew that that's it, we won't make the playoffs anymore, because we somehow believed we're chasing a dream and we still can somehow, come from behind and just do it, what Kansas did last year. Unfortunately, we didn't manage in the end of the day. One of the highs was that we did qualify for the Champions Cup, but same thing, one of the lows was the way we played away in Houston when we lost 2-1 in the Champions Cup. That was probably one of the worst games of football I've seen we ever played. Overall, I think the high is that you feel that in the city and in the stadium, within the fans, within the team, within everybody, you feel a very positive vibe for 2025. I think that must be our high and what we're really looking forward to and what we want to build for the future.
And one thing that's been very clear all season, whatever the result, the fans are there, they're singing, they're making as much noise as possible. How much does it mean to you to have the fans' unconditional support behind you?
Yeah, it means a lot, because you see that the interest is always there and the support is always there. And I mean, that game, I think against Houston, when the fireworks were blowing up, it felt like some of my players came and said, "Did we just win a title or something?" That felt so special. We basically just had the last home game in a season which was not satisfying for us, where we didn't hit the goals we wanted to hit. We didn't achieve the success we wanted to achieve. And still, the people were amazing, and we were supported for every single second in every single home game. So that's something lots of other clubs, sporting directors, coaches are very jealous about. Coming to St. Louis, you feel a different kind of vibe than in lots of other stadiums. So yeah, do we have the best fans in the country? Of course we do. Absolutely.
Okay, the tradition on the show is that we give the last word to you to give a message to the fans.
Yeah, be positive, and I think you saw that we try to adjust certain things to a positive future. 2025 is not too far away. The current squad we have makes me personally very, very excited that there is a lot to come. We're still not done building the squad. We still want to adjust certain things, get better in certain things, get better in certain positions. And then let's hope that we kind of get rid of these negative thoughts of 2024. Make sure we don't get bitten again by the injury bug, which I kind of tried to kill myself. Couldn't find him yet, but out in the garden trying to find it, and really be positive for 2025, believe in what we do, and yeah, just enjoy the game.
Fantastic. Well, that brings us to the end of the podcast. Lutz, it was fantastic to have you on. Hopefully we'll have you on at the start of next season. And if you're listening to this, make sure you give us a little 5-star review. We like to read all of the comments. And if you leave a comment, hopefully Lutz will come back. And on that note, we'll say ciao for now.